I mean, like I said, I was just a 23-year-old kid with no idea about how the world worked, no idea, but just a dream of wanting to create content for a living. And, I don't think I'm overly like smart or genius or anything. I think we're just very consistent and methodical, and we learn from our mistakes.
Hey everyone, welcome to Reanimated Stories. I am your host, Roger of Reanimation Design, and today I have a very special guest, Michael Beltran of Flash Marketing. Michael and I are both here in the greater Austin area, and Michael has been doing, well, I don't want to tell you because he's going to explain it himself and he's going to talk about it, but he has been doing this for a long time and he has a really awesome story. So let's get right into it. Michael, great having you here. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Roger. Thanks for having me.
Well, Michael, without further ado, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so Flash Marketing started the company about 4.5 years ago. And the origin story is pretty interesting, I will say, because I grew up in this like YouTube era where I thought I was going to be this like popular gaming YouTuber. Like I was telling my mom I'm gonna be famous one day and I'm so good at this stuff, whatever. But I think that's where the real love for like social media content creation and really all things around social media started from my teenage years. And it's an interesting space to be in because there really is there's no blueprint to success on social. There's no degree that you get. There's no, there's no like structure you follow to find success on social media. Like it truly is sort of a blank canvas place. And I think that's why we all gravitate towards it. And I say we all, because there are 5 other people who work at Flash Marketing, all of which kind of have similar backgrounds, upbringings of being, sort of this like do-it-yourself creator as a young teenager, and then kind of keeping that love for creative as you grow up. And we all share that. And so social media, we gravitate towards it because of this idea that it's a blank canvas with no rules. And you can, generate attention in so many different ways. And to us, that's so much fun, is to like represent our clients well, but also like produce like cool, creative, interesting content that people haven't seen before. So yeah, it's a fun space to be in. I turned a teenage love into something I could, work in as an adult.
That's awesome. I love how you had said like you grew up in this YouTube era, like I'm gonna, you told your mom, hey, I'm gonna, be gamer and stuff like that. So when I grew up, like obviously YouTube wasn't around and all that. And so, this idea of, oh well, I'm gonna be like a YouTube star, or I'm going to stream video games. People are gonna watch me and they're gonna, support me in that, right? Very foreign. So it's been very interesting to see what they, what that's become. And I love that because, you saw that and you're like, well, I want to turn that love of, a video of, showing off and showing people and really turn that into helping clients. So tell us a little bit about what Flash Marketing does and what your role is and how that's kind of grown and all that over the past few years.
Yeah. Yeah. So pretty simplistic service offerings at Flash. We have 2 main verticals. First of which is the organic, so the non-paid side of social media. And that's things like content creation management. So content creation could mean images, like photos or graphics that you make. But I think especially in today's landscape of social media, that mostly means video. I'm sure you and your audience know video is king, especially on social media now. So when we say content creation, it could mean all the different facets of content creation, but really for the most part, we're creating a short form, like vertical video, the kind of stuff you would see on like TikTok or Instagram Reels or something like that. And then on the management side, so I guess that's sort of the part 2 of content creation, right? You have to create it and then you have to like actually distribute it. And so we'll do the full distribution aspect of it too. I think one of our key differentiators there really is that like our clients have no responsibility. Like they don't have to send us ideas or like record things themselves with their phone and try to send it to us and for us to edit. Like we completely control the entire creative process, start to finish, which allows our clients to just get rid of it and not have to worry about it. And you're a business owner, like you get it. Trying to be consistent on social is very difficult, especially when you're piling it on top of all the thousands of hats that you wear and all the different responsibilities that you have. So we structure it that way just so we allow our clients to be able to sort of remove that off of their plate completely. Although if they want to be involved, they can. But that's sort of the non-paid version of social. And then we do also the paid half of social, right? So think like the classic Facebook advertising, but we can also do things like Instagram ads, TikTok ads, pretty much any social media platform that has advertising capabilities, we can work in it. And that's definitely more lead gen focused, right? Like you can choose who your audience is. you could choose the pathway that they take from seeing an ad to clicking on it to, moving through the funnel. So there's a lot more control, a lot more directness, I think, with that, with paid social, because you're actually attempting to convert these people, right? Get them to take the next step, click on the next thing, fill out the next form, all the way down to them eventually giving you money in some capacity. So that side of it is a bit more long-winded. It's a bit more integrative. Like there are a lot of variables, as you know, there are a lot of variables that dictate how good or bad a paid advertising strategy can go. And so one of our real key differentiators there is the fact that we will touch the entire funnel start to finish, because in our belief, like it's not just about the ad at the top. Like it's one thing to get clicks on an ad, which is great, but they have to go somewhere from that. And wherever they go has to make sense in the context of what they clicked on. And then from there, it has to be clear for them to know what to do to take the next step and to take the next step and all of that. Right. And so it's super important to touch and look at the entire funnel, because just getting clicks on an ad is not enough to, see that all the way through conversion. And of course, there's variables here that depends on the industry, it depends on the product or service that you're selling and the cost of that thing. But for the most part, like people need more information, more time, more trust to be able to make a buying decision, especially if you're selling something a little larger. So on the paid advertising side, it could mean a lot of different things. Funnels could be short, they could be very long, or anything in between, but we're very cognizant of that. And like I said, one of our key differentiators is that we're touching the entire funnel, not just working on the ads at the top.
I think that that's super important, specifically on the paid ad side, because you're seeing it from start to finish, right? It's like, well, I could do this ad, but if you're not thinking, okay, well, when they get to it, what if they don't qualify, right? Like how would you know if they didn't qualify, right? Or hey, they do qualify, but maybe they actually qualify for a little bit more, and how do you push them a little further along? And I think that that's fantastic. And I'm sure that part of that also even comes into play of how you're thinking even of like organic social media. And I think that probably both of those play a little bit into each other, and that you're thinking like, oh, okay, well, to get somebody to view this, and then, okay, but then we also want them to see the paid ad as well. And then we want them to go a little bit further. We want them to kind of figure that out. Michael, something that you had touched on a little earlier, and I want to get back to that in just a moment. We'll get back to the social media. So, obviously I said when I grew up, there was no YouTube, right? When you grew up, you were like, oh, I want to do, YouTube and all this sort of stuff. So so tell us, if you don't mind, tell us how old you are. So I'm 39. So I'm definitely a little older than you.
Yeah, I'm 28.
But tell us a little bit about, yeah. So tell us being, see how, being younger, right? So being a young entrepreneur, what made you kind of start thinking about that? And how has that kind of changed how you've looked at just, entrepreneurship, business owner, and, being so young? How do you think that plays into giving you an advantage or a disadvantage in what you're doing, and how you talk with business owners and all that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I have sort of the stereotypical sort of reason why I wanted to become an entrepreneur. Like I started my business at 23, 24. I was very young and naive. I mean,
That's awesome.
you can look back on 23 and you think you know a lot, but you really don't. Right. And I will say, to give myself a little credit, I think my youth and jumping into entrepreneurship kind of cold turkey. Like I didn't have any background. I mean, I got a college degree in psychology, did a little bit of business work, I guess, but none of it felt like it translated, right? So it really felt like we were sort of wading into the deep end without really knowing how to swim. But
Yeah.
I think being young, it kind of gave me a little bit of blinders too. Like the idea of risk, like just didn't even compute in my head. And looking back, like we were in a pretty compromising position. I mean, we didn't have any clients, we didn't know anybody. Like we just decided one day to start this thing, and here we are. But I think there's something beautiful in that too. Like it was a very grassroots, like learn as you go sort of experience for us. And I think there was a lot of good mistakes that we made early enough that they don't hurt as bad when you make them early versus when you make them, a couple years down the line. So from that aspect, looking back and as I reflect about it, it was scary in that like I had no idea what I was doing. We just had this dream of creating content for other people, and that's kind of what you hold on to. But at the same time, I mean, my youth, I think, helped me in that like I just had complete blinders on, like the idea of failure just didn't even cross the mind. Risk didn't cross the mind. It was like we were gonna make this happen one way or another. And so yeah, it's an interesting thing there. And I will say, like in business, I mean, usually you would think like being younger could hurt you, but I feel like I'm in the one industry where my youth is my superpower. Like, because folks, especially if they're a bit older, like some of my clients are 40s, 50s, 60s, right? They didn't grow up with this like social media thing being so, prominent in their life. So they look at someone like me who did grow up with it as some like almost like they trust me more because of that. So it's interesting because you would think like, oh, being young, like that might make it a little bit more difficult to like build connection or do that. But because I'm in social media specifically, it's like the preference is that I'm younger. It would almost feel like it would hurt me if I was a bit older. You know what I mean? That I don't get it or I'm not like with it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting sort of backwards thing that I guess it's not what you would expect when people look at somebody young in business, but
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fantastic, and I think you're right too. I think that you having, being young like that, I think is really, giving you that advantage because again, people are like, "Oh, okay, well, he obviously knows, social media and he understands that. He's picking that up and all that." And I think that that's absolutely fantastic because it gives you that edge because you're able to, you grew up with it. And so it's like, oh, okay, it's this thing that is really, I can see how it's really helping you. And, or I mean, so, you're talking to the client, I can see how it's really helping you. And they're just kind of like, well, it's social media and stuff. And I think, really leveraging that and they see that in there. So so continuing on with that, so you have clients that are, well, actually, hold on. I want to kind of continue on with that. You had mentioned, so, you started when you're 23, you're 28 now. You've now grown because when you started, it was just you and your best friend, correct? And then
right.
now you have a full staff of like 5 of you or 6 of you or something like that.
5. Mhm.
Well, yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit about that journey. About, okay, so you guys started like you had a degree in psychology. Now you're gonna just kind of go cold turkey, and like I said, like you said, no risk, or like you don't have any idea of like, well, this risk and all that, as opposed to someone who maybe started a little later, maybe they have kids, a house, things like that, right? And you're just like, hey, I'm going for this. And so tell me that process of like, okay, 23, we're gonna start this. 28, now you have 5 employees. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. It's been an interesting one. We almost look at it because Zach and I talk about this. We've reflected on this, and we almost see it in like almost like 3 stages, right? Because stage 1, when you first start, is really like, can I do this at all or not? Right? Like for us, it was like, can we even get to a point where we're like we can do this full time and like survive, right? Like take care of our families. And so it starts off like very just like roughneck. Like it starts off very just raw. Like we don't know a lot. We're just kind of dipping our toes in things. So I'm going to meetings. I'm meeting people. Like I don't even really know. I'm kind of directionless. It's just like let's just meet as many people as I can. Let's just like branch ourselves out in as many ways as we can, and then just kind of start to figure it out. And so that's like sort of phase 1 that I think took about a year or so of us just like trying things and meeting people and then starting to develop like how do I talk about myself? How do I present my service offering in a way that people want? Like there's so many little things like that like you have to learn and figure out and be able to like talk about yourselves with confidence too. I mean, even that's a big chunk of it. Like I need to like at first I'm talking about myself as if I'm hesitant about my own service. And so there's so many of those developmental things I think happened in that first year. And then I think we got to a point where we had enough clientele where it was time to like stop treating this like a side hobby between me and my friend. And like, okay, we need to like really structure and learn about business, right? How do taxes work? How do you scale? How do you hire people? All of these like little things had no idea about. Like I said, I didn't have any experience or a degree in this. And so it felt like as we moved from that sort of phase 1 of just being kind of, band-aided together into this like structured phase 2 was really important. And I can credit a lot of people. I mean, there's so many folks in my networking circles. Alex, somebody you've had on your podcast, has been instrumental in like really teaching me about sort of the back end of business, right? I feel like I have sort of the same story as like maybe some of the blue collar folks that start trades businesses where they start in like knowing how to do the actual service, but they don't know much about everything else that comes with business. And I feel like that was me where like we knew what we were good at and we knew we could do it. But it's just like, how do you scale it? How do you structure it? How do you present it in ways that other people can grasp what we're trying to offer? And then from like that phase 2 to phase 3, you get to a point, or we got to a point where we were generating good leads. We were bringing in some good clients. Like we were sort of climbing the staircase up to what you would call, success or whatever that means. And I think from there, hiring people, like we just did a lot of diligence work. Like, okay, so like we get from phase one to phase two. Phase two is really where I think a lot of our growth came and confidence, and like a lot of the learning gave me the ammo I felt like I needed to like really be dangerous and have the confidence that I know what I'm doing in business. And I think from that, because of those experiences, moving into like hiring people, we felt very confident in like we had clarity on who we wanted to bring in, what role they would have, all of that sort of stuff. So I think going from that sort of like phase one to phase two is much more difficult for me and for Zach than it was to go from phase two to phase three, because we felt much better equipped to like and understanding our business better and everything about what Flash means. Like I feel like we knew a lot more as we started to hire full-time people. So honestly, like I feel very blessed because we have had really no issues with hiring full-time. All of our staff are still with us, and it's been a couple years now. So I don't, maybe we caught lightning in a bottle a little bit. I'm not sure, but I tend to look back and think like the clarity that we had kind of going into hiring people for the first time really helped us make a good decision on who we wanted to bring in, and them aligning with like who Zach and I are. And, I'm proud because like I feel like our people truly embody like what Flash marketing is meant to be, and that's a hard thing to ask for, like for a business owner to expect, the sort of buy-in from their employees that they have, that's a lot to ask for. And it's not, I never had that expectation, but it's just it's a pride thing, I think, for me, that like our people embrace everything that Flash marketing means and like truly does. And so, yeah, it's been quite the journey, but it's fun. And I think there's something really beautiful in the idea that, you can just do things in life. You have the free will to pursue anything. And if you work hard and you're consistent and you put your best foot forward every day, that you can make anything happen. I mean, like I said, I was just a 23-year-old kid with no idea about how the world worked, no idea, but just a dream of wanting to create content for a living. And, I don't think I'm overly like smart or genius or anything. I think we're just very consistent and methodical, and we learn from our mistakes. And sometimes I think I shouldn't say it's that easy, but it can be as simple as that. And sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think that that's fantastic. I love that how you broke it into phases, right? There was, the growth, there was this figuring it out phase, there was this growth phase, and then it was like, okay, let's continue to build this phase. And I think that's fantastic. You had mentioned they're hiring people and how they have stayed with you because they understand and they embody and they capture and they understand what it is to be a part of Flash marketing. And you really had that due diligence of really thinking through that. That is absolutely fantastic. So if someone is thinking of like, so maybe they're young, right? Maybe they're 23, maybe they're a little bit younger than that, or maybe they're older, right? It doesn't matter, but they're thinking, okay, well, I want to start a business. What are some things that you think that they should think through? Because you had said like, I mean, I don't have a degree in business, right? I feel like I talk to a lot of people and they don't have a degree in business as well, but you're like, hey, I got psychology degree, but this is really what I want to do. And I just jumped for it. And you talked about being consistent. You talked about just trying to figure it out, and you failed a lot. And so what are some things that you would tell somebody if someone was like, hey, maybe I want to jump, it may not be social media, right? It may be something, but I really want to do this thing. What should I do to kind of get started?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's this sort of weird period you can get into where you start to overthink things too much. And I'm very much a just do it, right? If you have this idea, and of course there has to be logic behind this too. You can't just have this like, dreamy, unattainable thing in your head that, what I mean, it's going to take a lot of cash or effort or whatever. There's barriers to this, but I think it's one of those things, like just be very clear about what you want to do. Like the one thing that we knew was that we wanted to create content for other people. We were confident in our ability to do that. We knew that there was value in it, right? And so we started with that. And it's sort of like your North Star, that like you keep that at the forefront of, maybe like almost like a mission statement in a way, but you keep this thing as the North Star, as the guiding light for you. And then you just go do things. Like I think one of the best things I did was just meeting people, going to networking events and just putting yourself out there, making connections with people, meeting people. That's such a powerful thing. So that's one of the things I would say for sure, is just put yourself out there. I'm a big believer in some of the cliches, like, it's not about the grades you make, it's about the hands you shake, or it's not what, it's who you know. I I think, in high school, you hear those things and you think, oh, it's just a cliche. No, that's like the most truthful statements you could ever hear. So like, yeah, I would
Yeah.
start with a
So,
good idea. Like, is it logical? Is there a market for it? That has to make sense. Start with that as your North Star. Get out and meet as many people as you can. And then just trial and error everything, like from pricing to structure to all of that. Like we just figured out what our clients' pain points were, what gaps were we trying to fill, and then you go and fill them. And then, you have a good experience, a bad experience with a client. You can pivot your structure. You could pivot your experience off of what went well and what went wrong. And that's really how we did it. Like we tried our best not to overthink or make assumptions about our clients and what they want and need. We just went out and found them and then asked, right? And you talk to so many people, you ask so many people what their gaps are, what they would enjoy getting taken off their plate, all of that. And then from there, we start to like back build our offering off of people's pain points, right? It's a big reason why I talked about it. I talked about it at the beginning, but it's a big reason why we do management and content creation, right? Because we thought maybe we could just do content creation, but people didn't want to have the responsibility, right? We added that service in because we learned from other people that they wanted to fully remove it off their hands. And so it's like, it's less about what you think people need and more about what they tell you that they need. And if you're willing to listen and be, agile and versatile in what you offer and how you offer it, that to me is the way to continue to win and adapt. And that's the nature of business. I mean, it's only been, and we started this business like the beginning of or middle of 2021, and things change all the time. Things change every year. And like, you have to be agile. You have to be versatile. You have to be able to pivot and offer different things or just slightly tweak your offering to better fit your clients. And so that's what I would say. I mean, outside of just like, obviously just jumping in and going for it. I mean, you're never going to feel prepared. You're never going to feel ready to make a leap like that. And then like I said, yeah, I think just methodically working through via trial and error, make those mistakes and make them early. Who cares? Like I'm glad we made a lot of mistakes early because, now with employees and liability, like making a big mistake is much more detrimental to our business than it was, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But I'm glad we got all those sort of mistakes out of the way. We now have, things to learn from now when the stakes are a bit higher. So that's what I would say. But, that's just based off of my experience. And I know my experience is a little unique in that sense. So, yeah.
yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. In fact, something that when I started doing this is that I would always tell myself, I was like, okay, I need to learn to fail differently, right? Like you're going to fail, but just always learn to fail differently and always be learning and just, do the things scared sometimes. But what I mean by learn to fail differently is like you said, hey, we tried to do this thing and hey, most of it worked, but a couple things didn't work. Well, let's figure out why didn't it work. Oh, well, maybe we don't need this, or maybe we need to do it differently. Okay, well, let's try it again. And okay, we learned from that, and now we fixed all that. Okay, but now something else is something else failed, right? Okay, well, let's figure that out. And so you're just kind of, it's not just like, all right, well, here we are. It's okay, well, let's kind of figure, this out sort of thing. And I think that that's absolutely fantastic. I think that that is such crucial advice that you just gave about not being scared to fail and just do it. And if you fail, okay, well, at least you know what to change for next time. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. And I know that my audience will really appreciate that. So Michael, if someone is thinking, okay, well, maybe I do need to do some content creation, or, I need to start, thinking about being on social media. I need to start doing that. And they're like, okay, maybe I do need to do that. What are some of the things that they need to think about if they were going to like look for someone like you, or they were just saying like, what are the things that they need to think through to like say, okay, maybe I am ready for organic, or how do I know if I'm ready for organic or paid?
Yeah. I would say, I think, first of all, we're very holistic marketers at Flash Marketing. And I think this is important because I think you need to have things in place. Like organic social has a role, but it's like a football team. I don't know if you're a football fan. I'm going to make a football analogy, but like in a football team, there's 11 guys on either side of the ball. Every guy has a role, right? Like it's not just reliant on one player to do everything for the team. It's like every person has their job, right? The quarterback's job is to throw the ball. The linemen are supposed to block. The receivers are supposed to run routes and catch it. Running back runs the ball, right? They don't do each other's jobs, but when they all do their jobs together, they have success as a team. And I think your marketing efforts are very similar to that. Like you can't just do social or just do SEO or just to do ads alone, right? Like you can't build a house without the foundation, or you can't put drywall up without framing. You can't put a roof on without, like you have to have all these other things in place. And then when you put organic social on top of it, that's where you see the most success. So at first I would say is you need to look at your marketing efforts as a full picture, holistic view, and not looking at each channel individually, because it's going to make you very frustrated. I mean, these things are supposed to work together in cohesion, right? Like a football team. If the offensive line doesn't block, the quarterback could beat Tom Brady, but if the O line is terrible, he can only do so much, right? He only has so much ability in the context of what he's able to do. And so I think first step is you got to have everything in place. I'm talking like websites, Google business profiles, social media channels, at least built, a CRM system, a way to intake leads or prospects, a way to communicate with people. Like you need to have all of these, I think, like sort of foundational elements in place before even thinking about paid advertising or social media in any capacity. And then from there, I think it's because I think any industry truly can find value in it. Where I think people go wrong is how they look at social, like what the purpose of social is, because social media is a very passive way to generate leads and a more active way to generate attention, right? And if you try to treat your social media as a place for you to sell, you're not going to find, I mean, you're just not going to find success, right? We as consumers on the other end of the screen are very selfish. Like we don't watch content that doesn't benefit us in some way, right? That could be education, that could be entertainment, that could be inspiration, or maybe a combination of those three. But as a consumer, like we're not going to watch something that doesn't benefit us. And so the problem I see other, business owners or businesses when they're creating content the problem that they make is that they try to talk about themselves. Like everything on their social media is about them. And really everything on your social media should be about teaching your ideal target audience, like whoever that ideal customer of your business is, talk to them as if that's who you're talking to on into the camera, and then give them something, right? Give them education, give them advice, inspire them to make a change, or entertain them in some way, right? Or do a combination of those things. But it's always has to be about your target audience and never about you. So I think that's an important distinction. And then the other thing I think is just being very clear, right? The algorithm is a tricky beast and it changes a lot. But I think the most common way to look at it is it's like a third party middleman person. Like treat the algorithm like a human, right? It's like in networking. If you go to a networking event and you meet someone for the first time, like you don't trust them. You don't trust them enough to send them business or to do business with them, right? You have maybe that first one-on-one, you guys get to learn each other, right? At that point, that person becomes a little more referable to you because you've learned a bit more. And over time, as you meet with this person, as you come across them in networking meetings, as you build that relationship, they become more and more referable to you, right? What they offer becomes more clear to you, and what you offer becomes more clear to them, right? And it takes time to develop that. And the algorithm's like the same way. Like if you start making social media content, it's not going to know much about you. It's not going to know who to put your content in front of, right? But over time, as it gets to know you like it's a person, and as you get to know it, as you feed it information, it's going to get better and better and better at placing your content in front of the most relevant people. And that could be based off of their consumption habits or their location or a combination of those things. But over time, the algorithm is going to get better too. And so, we say it's a long game, but that's why it's like building a networking relationship in person with another business owner. Like it's not just gonna immediately you guys meet and this person's going to refer you a bunch of business and you guys have all this trust. Like it takes the time to methodically build that up. And that's exactly how it works on social media too. And so there's an element of this that you have to be patient, not just because it takes time for the algorithm to figure it out, but it just takes so much time. It takes time for people to find you, to latch onto your content, to follow you, for that to develop. Like it's just like real relationships. And I think if you think about it in that context, you're going to find so much more success, and you're going to have the proper expectations for what this channel is supposed to do for you. And again, that's why I go back to the holistic view, because if you look at social media as a way to generate attention, you could use your other channels to draw that, to take that attention and then like convert that attention into what you want, which is return, right? And that's where paid advertising can come in. That's where SEO can come in. That's where having obviously a very nice, clean, concise website that's clear can help, right? So That's what I would say is I think there's always opportunity on social for pretty much any industry. It's just the thing I see the most is just not leveraging it in the right ways. It's trying to use the wrong tool, trying to use a wrench to nail a nail in or something like that, right? Like you got to use the right tools and the right channels for the right things. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love that, because a lot of times we want everything to be like, okay, I put one social media post out. Why am I not getting 1,000 views, right? Like, why is this not happening? It's like, well, because like you said, the algorithm's got to figure it out. Same thing with like, with SEO and with all of that, it's like people are like, well, by next week we're going to be, number one. And it's like, well, probably not. Right. Like you have like
Yeah.
this thing takes time, right? Because there's authority, there's all these things that are playing behind it. And I think that's extremely important. And so thank you for sharing that. And so having said that, so if someone was thinking, hey, you know what, I want to, learn a little bit more about Michael, well, where can they go to connect with you and learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, you could find us on all our social medias, Flash Marketing Agency. So you can find us Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of the platforms. Although Instagram's probably our best one. Look us up on Google, Flash Marketing Agency. You can find our Google business profile, read through some of our reviews. You'll be able to see our website there. And then my email information. If you want to get in contact with us, email information, michael@flash-mktg.com. Or you can shoot me a text at 512-222-3660.
Awesome. And we will have all of those links down in the description as well. Well, hey, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate that. And I really loved hearing your journey from, 23-year-old kid trying to figure it out to now having, employees and growing and scaling and really just helping businesses themselves grow and scale. So thank you so much for coming out today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Roger. Thank you for having me and thank you for your time. This was great.